Hi, this is Mr. Martin. I was going to give you some instructions for your final copy for your research paper. Now, you should be getting your final copy back, or I'm sorry, your rough draft of your secondary research paper back in the mail. I know you just are finishing your primary research project. This is like your secondary because it's not research that you made, it's research you found and wrote about. So, you're going to do the final copy of this paper, and it's not due until, I believe, April 23rd. It's on Google Classroom there. But it is worth more points, so it is definitely worth your time to do some revision, maybe add some additional research. Some of you did quite well on the rough draft, so there's really not much to add. I will say that generally, if you turned in the same paper for the final copy that you turned in for the rough draft, your grade is going to be lower. So, if you got a B on the rough draft and you turned in the same exact paper, you would not get a B on the final copy. You'd probably it would drop a letter grade, probably to a C. The lower you scored the first time around, the worse that drop's going to be. So you need to improve. Some of you didn't get to 1,800 words. Let's talk about that. I'm going to go. This is the final copy rubric. It has all the same criteria as the rough draft rubric, except the point value is 50 points more. So I'm putting a little bit more value on this because you'll have some time to think about it and correct some things. Maybe I'll just do that right off the bat because this was an issue for some people. Again, the main body of the paper needs to be 1,800 words. Okay, so that's not including the abstract. That's not including the works cited. So here's a sample paper. I think this is already on Google Classroom. So we're not counting the abstract. We're only counting the body of the paper. Let's see where she's at. Not counting the works cited. Okay, it goes to there. Her word count is, all right, so she was well over that. Make sure that you're there because if you are below that, I count off a point for every 10 words short, and that can add up pretty quickly, especially if you got a short paper. Let's start at the top here. And a lot of this we've already covered. So it's just kind of a reminder, although it's been quite a while since we worked on this paper. So, maybe you'll find it useful to listen along here. Again, your title page includes the title, author's name, institution. All information should be correctly formatted. I did have some issues with this the first time around here. Let me scroll to the top here. All right, first of all, the header. The header for the first page is a little different than the rest of them because it says running head. Okay, now if you use the Google Docs APA format, it builds this in for you. So I recommend you do that. I think we all did, but I had some people not put the title in all caps. The title is all caps throughout. I don't know if I told her class this, but I do want you to have more for your title than simply the topic. It should be like child marriage, she has it here, unveiling the truth. So she did not put that up here. She should have. Maybe I missed that the first time around. Make sure your page number is kind of on the right margin here or close to it. Some of you had the page number like way over here. Some of you had it down here. You might have to do a little formatting to move that page number right there. Okay, in terms of your abstract, again, it needs to be 150 words. And it's basically kind of like your paper in outline form. It's like you took the outline of your paper, you turned it into like a paragraph, and it basically says this is what your paper is about. Now, it might be helpful to start your abstract off with like a stat or something, a tiny little introductory hook or something like that. But then you just get right to the outline of your paper. Because again, the purpose of the abstract is if somebody's researching They don't want to take the time to read the whole paper. They just want to be able to see quickly, well, what's in the paper. And if you look at, like we were using EBSCO, if you look at EBSCO, all those articles, I guess I should say the articles that are from academic journals, they all have an abstract. Now the keywords, some people have struggled with keywords. You want specific keywords that are specifically pertain to your topic. And you need 3 of them. And think about it, think about it like this. Because the point of the keyword is, if your paper was put into some database, what keywords would somebody press to pull your paper up? Now, if I just, this is child marriage, it's really a form of child abuse. If I just put abuse as my key word, like that would be really general, and that's not going to work for this. But think of it in terms of, if somebody were trying to find your article, what would they Google search? Like what specific terms? So some of you need to be more specific with your keywords, but you need 3 of them. The word keywords is actually italicized. I don't know why. It's kind of a quirky little thing. All right, page 3 should pretty much start at the top of the page. Looks like she's got a little space. I can live with that. There you got your title. This one is not in all caps. And that's the basic setup of the paper again. And just that alone, if you have 12-point font, well, it doesn't have to be Times New Roman, something that's not too silly. Double spacing. If you've got it all set up, that's 25 points right there. That's 25 easy points. Your introduction, again, hopefully you have kind of some sort of a combo hook. Maybe not just a stat, but a stat and a story. Usually, these kind of papers run like this. There's a personal story. It's like, this happened to one person. Wait a minute, it's a broader issue. It happened to all these people, because then you put in a stat. So it's like story, stat, and then thesis. Some of you do need to work on your introductions. For a lot of those papers, man, it would really help if you could put in some sort of a story about it personally happening to someone. It adds emotional appeal. It adds personal appeal. And it just makes your reader realize that this happens to real people, I guess. It brings your topic some more immediacy. Make sure that you have a clear thesis statement. A thesis statement is just, again, one sentence that says what you are trying to get across. You are really arguing here. You're making some sort of an argument, as in, this is a problem and we need to do something about it. I mean, that's the gist of your thesis statement, but you should have at least one sentence towards the end of your introduction that states that. And it's always good if you can include a quick little preview that tells your reader, well, where are you going? And you can do that in one sentence. But look for that in your intro. Let's take a quick look at Olivia's here. Olivia starts with the story of this girl that was married young, but then it gets general. Here's a stat. Wow. All these people are affected. And here's her thesis. Child marriage is a serious international issue. More needs to be done to raise awareness so girls all around the world can become independent and take control of their own lives. That's a good thesis. And then here's a little preview. In order to end this practice, it's important to discuss why it happens, the consequences of it, and what can be done to raise awareness. You need to make sure that you have some clear thesis statement. What are you trying to argue, and where are you going? That's kind of your basic, simple introduction: story, stat, thesis, preview. Now, your subtopic sections, each of these gets 20 points. Now, I realize that within your 3 subtopic sections, you may have more to say about one subtopic than another, but I'm still putting the weight of 20 points upon each of them. And you want to think of it as this. I would say you're shooting for at least a minimum of 3/4 of a page per subtopic. Now, some subtopics you might have 2 pages on, but try and wring out enough detail to at least get 3/4 of a page on each subtopic. Otherwise, some of your scores here will suffer. Try to start with some sort of topic sentence so that I know what this section is about. And, APA actually allows you, if you want to do this, you can use a heading for your sections. I did struggle with some papers knowing where one section ended and another began. And I had to read back through it 2 or 3 or 4 times to try and figure out, okay, where is this paper going here? The organization was just a little confusing. So make sure that that's clear. And one way to make sure it's clear is either have a strong topic sentence at the beginning of the section or put a heading. Go for it. I think a couple people did. Ample, meaningful research. Did you do college level research on this particular subtopic? So it's got to go a little bit further than, if I did a little bit further than if I searched it for 20 minutes on the internet. It should tell me more than I could find out in 20 minutes on the internet. That's one way to think about it. So it's not just your basic knowledge of the subtopic, but it goes a little bit further. It goes to kind of a college level of informing. Is it organized well? Is it easy to follow? Do you switch up your transitions? Some of you needed to go beyond next and also and then. And is it engagingly written, featuring a variety of sentence structures and sophisticated word choice? Okay. Let's talk about this part first. Number one, unless you are writing about a story that involved you, do not say I. Don't use I. And also, generally, except for maybe the intro and the conclusion, don't use you. Because again, you're going for an academic tone here. So avoid I whenever possible. Avoid you whenever possible. I think it is acceptable to say we, maybe in this type of an academic paper. But again, there are ways to avoid saying you. You just have to kind of fool around with it a little bit until you figure it out. Because if you use you, it's like you're talking directly to the writer, but your writer is more than just that one person that happens to be reading the paper. You also seems kind of like a finger pointing thing. And so it's just generally not accepted in academic writing. And in grammar, if you look at grammar tips and tricks at the top of our classwork page, in that document, there is a part that talks about ways to avoid you. It's something that we went over first semester, but you can review that if you'd like to. Okay, we'll go down to the conclusion. Again, you want to wrap things up here. So, your thesis kind of shows up again. You remind a reader, what was this all about anyway? What are you trying to argue again? Maybe some little brief reminder of what you went over. It doesn't, but you could knock out a restatement and a review within 1 to 2 sentences. It doesn't need to be any longer than that. But an engaging closing thought. This goes beyond just saying, hey, this is a problem, so let's take care of it. A good closing thought strategy here is a call to action to give people a specific website or number to call, maybe an organization they can support or some place they can go to find more information. It might be, if you didn't use a story at the start, maybe you use a story at the end as a closing thought strategy. Your conclusion should be, I would say, a healthy conclusion is a half page long. All right, conventions. So I'm pretty lenient the first time around here, but having gone through your paper and marked errors, I'm expecting very few errors this second time around. Probably one per page. Like really go through it with a fine-tooth comb. That's what's required of college level writing. We already talked formal scholarly style. Avoid I and you. Break out the thesaurus. Avoid using simple verbs over again like do and make and get. Avoid good and bad. things like that. You're looking for a higher level of writing, something more sophisticated. Now, this is something that a lot of people forgot about, and maybe I didn't put enough emphasis on it the first time around, but it's just something I built in that can help people with sentence variety. It says highlight one sentence that correctly uses a colon to list. Again, if you're going to list things with a colon, whether you're listing just items or phrases, there has to be a complete sentence in front of the colon. Secondly, highlight a sentence that uses a semicolon to combine sentences. Two complete sentences related, combined with the semicolon. The reference page. Some people were totally on point with this. Some people, wow, needed a lot of work. Okay, make sure you got at least 6 sources. If you don't, add some. Make sure you got an EBSCO source. If you don't, let's see. I think you can still get on it from home. What is the login and password? I forget offhand. I think it's still EPGHS. And then the password is Titan 19 exclamation mark. Try that. This is all lowercase, I believe. And we've got to have it somewhere on Google Classroom because we've used it. Let me know if you are trying to get in there and you can't. Make sure that your entries are listed alphabetically. Make sure they are formatted according to APA standards. Well, let's take a quick look at Olivia's works cited page. Okay. Again, remember the date is always the second thing. So, even in this instance, there is no author. Generally, you list the author first. Well, there is no author, and the date is second here, but that doesn't mean you moved the date up to the front. The date is always second. Whatever's after that, you just move up. So here she had just a page heading, no stated author, no stated date really, except for probably a copyright date at the end of the page. Now, she listed the website. You don't necessarily have to do that, but if you do it, remember websites are considered long works, so you put those in italics, and then you got retrieved from your full URL. This one was probably something she pulled off EBSCO, and it's a magazine APA thing. The rest of these are websites. If you can't find a date, you can either use the copyright date at the bottom of the web page where you found it, or you can put ND, and it's written just like that. And N period, D period, both lowercase. Okay, and it's alphabetized by the first word in the entries. So here we got AB, here we got AL, and so on and so forth. I noticed that further down, she runs into an issue. She's got a bunch of child marriage. Look at this, 3 child marriages in a row. Well, if that's the case, I think alphabetically you start with the earliest one. So here's she didn't have any other ones. Here's child marriage 2013, and that was the earliest one. But now she's got 2018 child marriages. Well, what do you do now? Well, you keep on going down the entry, and here's P and here's U. So that's why this one comes first. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but one thing that I think that she forgot to keep using is retrieved from, and she needs to have that with each entry. So I'm just going to go ahead and fix her paper. Well, no, I'm not, because I think she got to a point and just forgot to keep using it. Don't forget to keep using it. Other stuff. Let's talk about in-text citation. Okay, again, for APA, you're going to cite the author name and year. This is the gist of it. Author, last name, and year. You don't have to put a initial for the first name. You can if you want. One thing I noticed here, the period always goes after the citation because the citation is part of the sentence. Now, what happens if you don't have an author to cite. What happens if you don't have a year to cite? Well, there's always something to put in there. Uh, you could now. I understand why she did this. Remember, we had several child marriages. She had to list the website too to differentiate it from another one. But you can just list the page heading or just a couple words of the page heading. For some reason, uh, page headings are not put in quotes in the works cited, but you are supposed to quote them for in-text citations. So technically, she should have quotes here. What if there was no date? Well, then you would put ND there. That's how it works. Change everything back there. Okay. Um, Remember, if a quotation is over 40 words, you should block the quote. Um, you can look up on the internet how to do that. Basically, it's just the whole quote is indented, and then you put a citation at the end of it. You don't have to put quotes around the actual quote because in blocking it, it's assumed it's a quotation. I would like you to try and include a couple quotes in your paper. Some of you want an entire paper with no quotations from anybody, but if you can if you can quote a few experts on your topic or a few eyewitnesses to your topic, it lends credibility to your paper. It's not. It doesn't seem quite as much as like it's just you relaying the information. Like here's straight from the mouths of the people that know the most about it. So see if you can add a couple quotes if you don't have a few already. And you want to cite at least once per paragraph or whenever necessary. Uh, Again, the gist of citing is basically so that in reading the paper, the reader will be able to trace where every piece of information came from. So if they have a question about something or they want to know more about something, they can find that citation right there. And they can go back and look at the works site or the reference page and then find it. Um, I don't think I saw any plagiarism this time around, which was great. Maybe you fooled me. Who knows? But those are just some tips dealing with the final copy. I am going to put a spot here. I have not put it yet, but under research paper. Oh, no, this is from last year. That's why that's there. It's like wow, everybody turned it in. That's from last year's page. I am going to put a spot under research paper if I can get to the right Google Classroom. Sorry. Get your act together, Martin. There we go. All right, so this is the secondary research unit. This is where you turned in your rough drafts. I'll just add a spot right here that says turn in final copies. I will attach the rubric there for you to look at. Um, and from now on, everything that you turn in, I'm going to have to grade online. The reason I had about half of the rough drafts graded by paper, and then this whole coronavirus thing happened. So I decided to just keep using grading by paper, and so that's why I went with that. Next time around, I'll just do it electronically, and you'll get some feedback um, over Google Classroom when I return the paper to you. So hopefully that helps you as you think about the final copy. But again, you've got a couple weeks to do it. And don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions. Good luck.